Hello guys, CodefForge here. Welcome in the next video about Angular framework. Today we will be talking about directives, and directives are integral part of the Angular framework, so we don't have to install any external libraries. Okay, so in the first place, let's start our application by typing ngserve in the console. And if we open up app-component.html file, we can see that Angular has a new landing page. So let's open up web browser and let's check it out. Our application is up and running, and we can see a new landing page of the Angular framework. It's pretty nice, I think, but we will not need this, so we can delete all this stuff and we'll create some elements to play with. In app component, we want to create some div elements. So in the first place, we create a div with the class boxes wrapper. And inside we want to create div element with the green box class. And now we can move to the SCSS file of our app component. Over here I will paste some SCSS, so we will save some time. So we basically have the boxes wrapper, which is the flex container, and we have green box class, which will be the flex element. And it will be basically a rectangle with the dark green color. So if we save this one and HTML, my application should reload, but it's not. So we will hit enter, and here is our green rectangle. Now we want to create a directive that will allow us to rotate our green box on each click. We can create directives like all other elements in the Angular framework, and I mean by that components and services. So to do this, we can, in the first place, navigate to source app, and over here we can create a directory that is called directives. And we have to navigate here. And over here we can use Angular CLI to generate a new directive. So we type ng generate directive, and we'll call it resize, and we want to put it in the directory. So we will do this like that, and we hit enter. After a few seconds, Angular CLI should generate the directive, and it's over here. And also, if we navigate to the app module over here, we can see that we have directive over here added to the declaration of our module. So it's good. Let's move to our brand new directive. And over here in the first place, we want to inject element ref to our constructor. So to do this, we type private element ref, which will be the type of element ref. Using this element ref, we will be able to access the element on which we will put our directive. So in our case, if we use this directive on our greenbox div element, this element ref under hood will have access to this div element. Now let's create onClick method. So we go over here under the constructor, and we want the onClick method because we want to rotate our element on each click. So we create onClick method. It's pretty simple, and our onClick method for now will only display message to the console clicked. Okay, and now to actually make it work on click, we have to use host listener decorator, and in the constructor of this decorator we have to provide the name of the DOM event. So in our case, it will be click. And we can save it now. Now we want to use our directive, so we can put it on the greenbox div element. And to actually do this, we can see that our directive has selector that is called CF resize. So let's copy this one, and let's go to the app component HTML file. Right now, we just have to put our directive on our div element like this. So it's kind of attribute. So if we save it and open up the console, we can see after clicking our div element, messages clicked are appearing in the console. If we click somewhere else, outside of the green box, nothing happens. And if we click on the green box, we have new messages. So let's close it up and let's go back to our directive. Now we want to make our element rotate. So to do this, we will use element ref, which is injected in the constructor. So we have to type this element ref, and this element ref has access to the native element of the DOM. So we can use this attribute native element. Now we can style this element like years ago in the vanilla JavaScript. So all we have to do is access the style attribute or style property. And since we want to rotate it, we want to use transform rule, right? And we have to assign the value to this rule, and it will be rotate by 45 degrees. And we can save it up. Now if we test it, we can see that it works only on the first click, and this is because we are rotating our element on each click to the position of 45 degrees. So to actually make the feeling of rotating this rectangle, we have to rotate it back or rotate it further by 45 degrees. Let's try approach with rotating our div green box back. So in the first place, we'll create property is rotated, and initially it will be set to false. Now we can make use of it. So we want to say this is rotated, and using ternary operator, if it's already rotated, we want to rotate it back to the position of 0 degrees. So copy this thing and we want to paste it and set it to 0 degrees. And if it's not rotated, so this condition is false, we want to rotate it to the 45 degrees. And also I forgot the colon. Also, we want to negate the value of is rotated property on each click. So we want to say this is rotated, assign operator, and we want to use negation, and we want to set this is rotated. So property is rotated will be changed from false to true and from true to false on each click. So let's save it. Now if we test it up, we can see that on each click we are rotating our rectangle back and forth. So it is working like we want to. Let's go back to the app component HTML file, and over here let's copy this green box and let's remove this resize, and we want to change it from the green to red box. And also let's go to the SCSS file of our app component, and I will add the rule for the red box over here. So we can save it and we'll have another element over here. Now we can generate a new directive. So let's say it will be the ng generate directive, and we'll call it change color in the directory change color. So we hit enter and another one should appear here, and it's over here. So let's navigate. You probably already know what our new directive will do. So it will change the color of the element, and also will add some fancy box shadow when we will hover our cursor over a div element. Like before, first of all, we want to inject element ref in our constructor. So we say private element ref, which will be the type of element ref. Now we want to create two methods. First one will be called onMouseEnter, and second one onMouseLeave. So let's create them. onMouseEnter, and the second one onMouseLeave. First one will be decorated with the host listener, and it will listen for mouse enter events. So we type mouse enter in the constructor, And the second one will also use host listener decorator, and it will listen for mouse, oh, not this one, mouse leaf event. Now we have to implement behavior of these two. So like before, we want to use this element ref to access native element in our application, and we want to access style attribute, and we want to set background of this element to, let's say, crimson. And also we want to do exactly the same to add the box shadow to our element, but this time it will be box shadow attribute, and we want to set it to following values. It will be 10 pixels, 22 pixels, 0 pixels, and we want to set the color of our shadow to something like this. Okay, so let's save it, and let's use the selector of our directive, and let's put it on our div redbox like before, and let's save this file also. And now if we hover, that we can see that color has changed, but if we leave the mouse, it stays. So we have to implement mouse leaf method right now. So let's go back over here. In case of leaving the box, we want to set the background of this element to Firebrick, because this is the default one. And also we want to set the box shadow to the null, so it will have no box shadow at all. And let's save it. Let's test it out. So on the mouse enter event, our red box is highlighted, and if we leave the box, it's going back to the default view. Worth to mention is that we can combine directives together. So if we go back to app component HTML and copy this CF resize directive and put it on the red box element, save it, we can see that if we hover, our first directive change color works, and if we click it, it's rotating, so both directives works together. Great. By the way, this CF resize directive name is unfortunate. I initially wanted to make it resize element, but in the meantime I changed my mind to rotate, so you can call it rotate, it doesn't matter, I will just leave it like this. Last topic of this tutorial will be passing values to our directives. Let's create another box. So I will copy this one and put it over here. We'll take this one off and we'll change the green to the blue box. Okay, we will save it. And now we will go to the SCSS file and I will copy CSS rule, and our blue box should appear, and yes, it's here. Also, let's change the flex direction to the column, so it will be a little bit more readable. We want to create a directive that will allow us to pick the color, and after hovering on our box, change the color of the element. To do this, we will need some radio buttons, so let's add them. At the bottom, let's create a div element, which will be the container. And inside, let's add the header tag, and let's say select shade of blue and the column. And now we want to create the input, and this input will have type of radio, and also it will have name blue shade. ID will be the blue shade, so it will be steel blue. And we also want to have the value like this, and it will be also steel blue. And the last thing will be the click event, which we want to handle, and we want to assign to the click event our select color method, which we will create soon, and we want to pass the event to this. Okay, also we want to create the label for this element, so it will be a little bit more readable, and it will be 4, and now the ID, so it will be still blue, and also the text, so it will be still blue. Okay. Now we want to do exactly the same for the second shade, so let's select this and paste, and now it will be royal blue, not the steel blue, so it will be royal blue over here, royal blue over here, and also I believe over here and here. Okay. Let's implement the method in the app component TS file. So we go over here, we can get rid of this. And our method was select color, and it was accepting the event. And now we also want to create the property which will store the color. So let's name it color, and by default it will be set to the color of the blue box, so this one over here. And now after clicking the select color, we want to set this color to the one passed to the method, so we say event target, and it will be the value, and this value will come from the radio button. Okay, so now we can save it, and also let's save HTML file. Let's maybe also add the console log over here, so we'll know if our selecting works. So we want to simply display the color. Oh, we have to use this. Yes. So let's save it again. Okay, so let's test out our radio button. So let's open the console and scroll down over here. And if we click still blue is selected, and if we change it to the royal blue, this one is selected. Okay, so it works correct. Remember about that radio buttons from the same group should have the same name, because if we change the name, for example, from blue shade to blue shade 2, and we save it, we can see that we have this visual bug after the clicking them. And if we change it back to the same group, so they will have same name, and we save it, it works correct. What left to do is creating our directive. So let's create one. So we type ng generate directive, and let's call it select color / select color, and let's hit enter. After a few seconds, it's here. We can go to our directive, and over here, just like before, we want to inject our element ref in the constructor, like this. Now, since our directive will use external value to work, we have to add the property which will be decorated with the input decorator. So we type input, and we want to call our property blue shade, and it will be the type of string. Now we'll implement two methods, but instead of typing everything, let's use those two, like in the case of the change color directive, because it will be pretty similar. So we don't need box shadow, and we need to import host listener over here. And when mouse would enter our element, we want to change the color to the one provided from the parent component. So we will say this blue shade. And in the case of leaving the mouse from the box, we want to set to the default one, so it will be light blue. Also, in the constructor of the input decorator, we have to specify the name of the property that will get the value from the parent, and in this case it will be the same as the selector. So we have to do this like that, and now we can save it, and we can go back to our app component HTML file. Over here, just like before, we have to use our directive name like this, but since we want to pass the value to this directive, we have to use square brackets and assign to it variable color from the parent component. And this color over here comes from the app component TS file, which is the property of this class. So if we save it, we can select steel blue, and after hovering it is changing the color to the steel blue, and if we click royal one, it's changing to the royal one. And this is quite hard to see the difference because those colors are pretty similar, but I hope you can see the difference. Okay guys, this is all I have prepared for today. I hope you have enjoyed and you will also use your new knowledge about Angular directives in your projects. See you next time.